pleasure to do this with you. Thank you so much.
Matt, pleasure's mine.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. I had a little mishap on a train, but other than that, I'm in the office and feeling good.
Well, bravo for taking the train.
Yeah.
So, Eventric and the products that surround it, Master Tour, Master Tour, excuse me. Master
Yeah.
Tour have powered millions of events around the world. Everyone from Beyonce to Dead & Co. and Metallica is using it. 35 countries worldwide. I mean, this is like serious infrastructure layer software for the industry. And it's also kind of quiet. Like you just do your thing,
Yeah.
you work really hard. And there's so much I love about the way you approach things and your company and the work you're getting done. So I'm really excited to like share your story with the world. Did I cover is that how you would kind of talk about
Yeah. No,
Eventric? Why don't you give your version of it?
no, you're right. I mean, I guess I've never heard it that way as far as being like, we are behind the scenes and we are quiet. Like you're not gonna, neither of our companies, we're not making press and, in Inc. magazine or necessarily. I mean, it's a very quiet. You and I both operate in a very niche market, which is the live event space. So yeah, I mean, we've been around long enough, and as you know, it takes a long time to gain traction in this industry and gain the respect, get the brand out, because it's not a quick hockey stick growth for a company like this. You have to
Well,
really prove yourself from the beginning, and then prove that you're there, for the long run.
so great segue. Tell the story.
Yeah.
I heard something about
Yeah.
at some point, and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fast forward if anyone's heard this before, because I can, I've talked this story so many times, from investment pitches to my parents' friends to, like anyone, my parents still are kind of like, what do you do exactly? But I
That's the
think a
game of
lot
tech. I
like,
just want to be like, I sell tea. Yeah, I put
yeah,
tea in your cup. It's like it's not that simple.
no,
It's a
it's not. No,
platform, and people use it to
no.
plan shows. And
Yeah. I mean, some people think I'm like on stage still, like performing. And I'm like, no, you don't want this. And I mean, you don't want this on stage.
oh, you're a good looking guy. Come on.
Thank you. But no, I mean, it started like, I mean, I think a lot of us in this industry, I don't personally know how, I mean, your story, but I know so many that were just musicians or worked at clubs or both. That's how I started in school. I started a promotion company back in the early 90s. We promoted a lot of jam bands, a lot of local stuff. Then we had opportunities to bring in like Dave Matthews and Big Head Todd, and just a lot of stuff that was very popular, easy ticket to sell. I had no experience promoting shows. I'm sure I was doing everything incorrectly, including providing everything down to, the last M&M on the rider, which I was laughed at by many bands saying, you don't have to get us all this stuff. It's like a wish list. But so that got the taste. I mean, I always, I've been kind of a drummer, not professionally, on the side my whole life. And that was a good first taste in getting into the business, like, of music and live events. I really got excited. So, after college, I moved back to Chicago, where I grew up, and through some connections, started interning at a small record label. I mean, that internship turned into kind of a lot of things, including tour management of a band called the Drovers. I tour managed them, again, not without knowing about tour management or what that even meant. It just meant driving the van around the country and, getting them, to the gig on time. But pretty shortly into that, for various reasons, it's an interesting story, but I'll leave it out. I became the drummer of the band. It was supposed to be, I mean, literally like a Gilligan's Island. It was supposed to be like a 2-week tour, and it turned into 9 years of playing with the band. So, I mean, as a lot of your listeners probably know, when you're a band playing, 200 seaters across the country, there's a lot of driving. There's a lot of 8-hour drives, from weird parts of the country to even colder parts of the country. There's a lot of dead time, between, getting to the college town, loading in at 6, going on at midnight, playing till 3, loading out, step, repeat. So in the side, I built a little bit of a database to contract, or to follow our touring, make contracts. I mean, very simple management of the very simple needs we had as a small band. And then fortunately, we were introduced to a group of folks that came in to be our crew. One of them was Ian Kuhn. He had been with the Smashing Pumpkins for a while as a monitor engineer. And he and another wonderful man named Bill Ramey kind of sat one night in Washington during the snowstorm and also created kind of a master tour type of product. So when Ian came with me, we kind of geeked out together for a couple of years and really explored kind of some of what it could do. He then left for the Dave Matthews Band. He's still with them today as the monitor engineer. Dave and management were very supportive of it in the early years, helped us grow, financed a little to just get the features that they wanted into Master Tour completed. And then by association with the Dave Matthews Band, of course, there's a lot of other clients that we came across, from Neil Young to Chili Peppers to Metallica to Beastie Boys, Third Eye Blind, that started using it just out of kind of the association.
And what were you building this in? Was it a FileMaker system at first?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I wasn't a programmer. I didn't.
And what year is this?
So that's 94.
Holy moly!
No. This is probably. I'm sorry.
I thought it was like
2009. I started in 94. I started
Okay.
gigging in 94, but then by the time Ian came along, please plus or minus 5 years, because there was no Instagram, there's no iPhones to take pictures to prove any of this. But I'm going to say it was like 90. I specifically remember because 2000, January 1st, Ian and I first incorporated our first company, Production Consultants Guild, which is a great name for a company. But then we were doing other things, database design, website design. And then I'd say early 2000s is when the traction started to hit, and the awareness of the Master Tour database started to be a little bit known. And I just went out. I just went out and hustled, flew places, drove places to any band that would want to see a demo. This is when it was on the CD-ROM. I'd install it on their Mac or PC and pull it up in FileMaker. And really, it's early stage of it. Flash forward years and years, and again, through just very normal startup-y type of early stage issues and growth. No financing, very bootstrap. We didn't have a proper development team, so I eventually got to a point where I knew we needed financing to build at least some type of skeleton development team to help build it out of FileMaker and make it into like a real platform.
Yeah, one thing I want to pay homage to, like, is something that I found to be really profound, and I don't even know if I had connected the dots. Like, I didn't know that this had started in the late 90s, early 2000s. I just did some Googling while we were sitting here. Etix was founded in 2000. You had been in the game for a minute.
Yeah.
Like Facebook. What was Facebook? Maybe 2004.
Yeah, no, it's a great point.
This is pre-Facebook. Yeah, like this is.
Yeah,
real quick, the last thing I'll say is I looked at the founding of Ticketmaster, which I had assumed was around the same time. They were founded in 76.
Yeah, it's Ticketron.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, man, you were ahead of the game. This is Amazon was 98. Like, you were around the same time as Amazon.
So I could have thought up of Amazon instead of Master Tour.
That's not where I wanted to go with it. Yeah, you chose a cooler path.
No, you and I have joked about this. It's like there's a lot easier ways to make a big business than like in our industry, but I wouldn't change it for the world. But yeah, we were. That's an interesting point that I haven't thought about, because so much of that early technology. We were doing this before cell phones, in a way. Certainly before smartphones. We had cell phones, but there wasn't smartphones. So, and that was a huge. A really early indicator of success for us is when finally, I remember the first iPhone coming out, and this was BlackBerry too. So we had a BlackBerry platform, we had Android wasn't even out yet. We had an iPhone platform, but that was actually a great thing, because the challenge of selling this to tours back then was tour. We sell to tour managers and production managers. They were starting to love it, but then they'd go to the band and management, rightfully so, artists, they don't like new expenditures in touring, regardless how big or small they are. They're used to very, kind of repetitive, predictable forecasting budgets, everything like that. So this was kind of a new expense. So a lot of the times the tour manager would have to pay for it themselves. But when we released our first iPhone and smartphone release, it was great, because then the artists started to really understand it. And obviously what it is, it's, Master Tour collects all the information for touring. Kind of after the contract is made for the gig, everything gets funneled in, the routing, the hotel information, the venue information, all the production, all the logistics around the venue, all the travel, the flights, whether it's commercial or private, all the tour bus, all the, even the bunk positions that people have on a tour bus. The guest list part of it is a big part. So you maintaining all of your guest lists. We have a ticketing system too that you can sell the tickets on, kind of into the friends and family world. Dead and Company and Zach Brown, a bunch of big bands use it because they have that challenge of thousands of friends and vendors and industry folks that need these tickets. But so when we were able to build the iPhone app, it was the first time that the artists were like, okay, this is much better than a printed tour book. that gets outdated in, a day after you print it. Back in the day, you'd have tour books, that would be 3 months of data printed a month before the tour started. And obviously a lot of that information would change. And then the tour book info is kind of questionable. So the artists became really supportive on it. And that was a big indicator, because then if the artist did get new tour management, they would say, well, we want to keep using Master Tour because that's what we're comfortable with now. And that's the interface we like seeing our information in for touring.
Was on mute there. Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so
So that brings us to like 2008.
okay, and
About.
how many people are using it at 2008?
I mean, I would say a few hundred tours.
Few hundred tours.
Maybe. Yeah. And that was, but that was a critical point. That's when the architecture of the FileMaker universe was starting to collapse. I mean, on our side.
Okay, so what happened then? Yeah, where did you go from? Did you rebuild it with modern tech?
Yeah, I mean, I had a very catastrophic guest list crash at a good friend's tour. I mean, a friend that, and if you're listening, Dan, I'm sorry again for this, but it was a A-list artist that the guest list crashed at a hometown show. And she had like 30 of her family coming to see her, and they all didn't get tickets because my system didn't sync properly.
Oh no.
It was horrible. And and I happened to be there for it. And it was terrible. And it was really, I knew it was coming. I'm like, this can't happen. I'm probably too late, but I need to raise money and build this in a more scalable platform, because we were kind of just giving it away then. This was before it was a SaaS model. People were just writing checks for whatever I could get them to pay for, for a subscription, whether that was a month or a year. There was really no pricing model. There was nothing. So I raised some money with some dear people, kind of friends of family.
Were you full time in 2008?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So just enough to cover the bills, but that's about it, huh?
Not even. I mean, it is a classic, entrepreneurial startup story. And I've got. If I was a good writer, or if I could remember most of this stuff, it'd be a fascinating book that I'm sure you can relate with.
The point of these podcasts, yeah. Now AI.
Yeah, that's the challenges of start, especially, put it this way, like it's 2008. I'm desperately in need of financing. 2008, if everyone remembers, wasn't the best year to raise money.
There's some sort of financial crash. Some people took some bad mortgages out.
Yeah, just a little dent, little blip in the economy. But I remember sitting, and it was interesting, and this is a whole nother chapter in a book that I can't write, but because we were in a cool industry and it was kind of sexy, bands are using it and ticketing, blah, blah. Like we would get big meetings with Kleiner Perkins and Elevation and all these huge venture capital shops. And back then I was raising just $2 million, and you'd walk into these huge shops, and I'd be pitching this 3-page deck in front of 20 VCs in Silicon Valley. And they look at me, they're like, I'm sorry, what'd you say, 2 million? I'm like, what? Why don't you raise like 20 million? And I'm like, well, if you want to give me 20 million, but I can't lie to you and tell you that the market's, that I can use it. And if I did, I'd use it, very poorly and probably, higher up quicker than I need.
That's a decision point where the future of, that could, because the world thinks like, oh, if you just get a bigger check from investors, like, but we all know stories of folks that recently got $100 million. Like it can actually kill a company to raise too much money.
Without a doubt, I have 100% assurance that if, so because of a lot of circumstances, it took me 4 years to raise about $2 million. So I'd get 50, 100 here. It was kind of a rolling round, and the 50K would come in at the last minute, so I didn't have to fire somebody or make payroll or pay rent. And there were so many wonderful people.
Oh my God.
That supported. I mean, Joe Shanahan, who owns Metro, in one of the best promoters in the world, at the club level. He owned the building that we're still in back then, and he was just so supportive because I knew him from the touring days, and he's just like, man, I know you're going to pay, so yeah, you can have this month off. And it was just a lot of those types of people that without them I wouldn't have made it. And you're right. If I know this for a fact, if for some weird reason a VC firm came in and was just like, no, Paul, we're going to give you 10 million because we believe in this market, I would have taken it. And so it would have been so, I'm not ready for that type of capital. And I didn't really understand the market at that point. I didn't understand what Master Tour needed to be. I didn't understand the growth opportunity. I without a doubt, and I guarantee, I mean, of course, I would have had to give away most of the company, at least majority. And then we would have failed on deliverables, I'm sure, within the first year, if not second. And then I'm sure they would have wanted all their money back or just sold us for parts. I mean, so it's so fortunate that it wasn't any intelligent decision of mine to not take the money. We just didn't get it, but we And it helped me address a lot of the things I didn't know about the business and operating a business by having these meetings and getting, we did the whole kind of road show with all of the angel groups, around the country. And it's kind of like a American Idol. Like you go pitch, like 100 companies pitch to a group of angel investors, like in New York, and then they knock it down to 50 that they like. I mean, this is all within a day. And then you come back 6 hours later, pitch to the, if you make the final 20, and then if you make the final 4, you have to come back a week later and address their concerns and then repitch again. And then they'll pick 1 or 2. So we did that like 6 times and never got money because we just couldn't convince them or help them understand what this niche business of the live event industry is. So long story short, we did end up getting money, but just through angel investors and friends of friends, some industry folks. And it was great. I mean, they really helped build it. And again, it was a great learning experience. But this, you spend about 80% of your time when you're in fundraising mode. When you take your kind of eye off focus of the product and of the business and of even the employees or the staff. So it was and I had a great team around me then. And then, of course, just to jump forward 10 more years, everything's great. We're at the best position we've ever been. We have terms to be acquired by a public company. We're supposed to close the first week of April.
Wait, okay. So what's the date? 10 years. So give us the date.
Now, I mean, to jump forward, and again, you can just fill in the dots of just slow but consistent growth, product, customer.
It was just always linear up and to the right. There's no
20, 25%, no hockey stick ever, nothing.
It was just solid. I love it.
Yeah,
I love
solid.
it.
I mean, it was
hard growth.
So predictable. I mean, if you looked at our growth, every year, the first Monday of the new year is when everyone's like, okay, it's a new year. I'm going to sign up for Master Tour. And then it would grow. And almost to the day, for some reason, for 5 or 7 years, November 15th, everyone would start. The few people, only about 5-8% of our users would say, okay, I'm suspending and I'll come back after the holidays.
Oh my gosh.
So if you look at ever since we've been tracking this data, it literally does this almost to the date. First Monday of January, and for some reason.
Maybe you shouldn't let them suspend, by the way.
Yeah, well, I know. Yeah, I didn't say that. I didn't say that, guys. No one can always suspend.
I said it, Prism CEO. It's fine.
So that, so everything's going great. And, we had a huge market share. We were by far the first to market on this. I'd say even this is 2020, we were the industry standard for tour management software. There was nothing else out there, for better or worse. We were about to be, like I said, had a great opportunity to be acquired by a public company. And if anyone can do the math on this date, the first week of April 2020 was the closing date.
Oh my!
There was another little weird, global incident that happened about 2 weeks before that. And again, it was a wonderful opportunity, wonderful group. We totally believed in their vision for the expansion and the growth.
And it's public. Do you want to?
No, I mean, you could dig. If anyone wants to dig, you could
okay.
Look into it.
It was just it was a company we know in the space.
Yeah, great company. So
it is cool because, like, I think let's not name names, but like here you are as a bootstrap startup about to sell to a publicly traded company, and you and I talked about it's like there's a lot of fear in this industry around like, oh, big is bad, and it seems like you really trusted their vision and the team that was looking at you. And
big isn't, I mean, the perception of big in corporations certainly can be bad, and they can be evil and they can be horrible. And, there's a lot of big companies in our industry that take the brunt and take the blame for a lot of stuff. But at the end of the day, they're big because they're offering a great service. And again, you get to a size of a company where it's in the billions and billions and billions of dollars of revenue, like, I can't imagine the difficulties you have that on just maintaining, perfect customer respect, and getting everybody happy. And then, just tens of thousands of employees and one little hiccup by some division. And then, that sets the tone of your brand, until it's corrected. So I appreciate that. But like you said, more importantly, this group was great. And I believed in the group. And because when you're a founder of a startup that it's your entire life, and this wasn't like, here's some money, Paul, go away. I mean, I was still critical to the future growth of the business, So it was exciting to find. The exciting part was finally having that capital because of our just kind of gradual but consistent growth. We never had the money that we really needed to properly capitalize the business and invest and do new products, make Master Tour better, get it out to different things. So that was the exciting part. I really am passionate about what it can do, getting it out, and as we're doing now, finally introducing just way more valuable services, and not valuable necessarily monetarily, just valuable on how people can take care of themselves. How they can be made more aware of being healthier and mindful. Because I mean, the core thing of what we provide is like at the end of the day, someone right now can't say, well, Master Tour saved me $350 today because we didn't do this 4 times and this information, was distributed faster. Really, at the end of the day, it's about saving time for a person and giving them a little bit back of their day so that they can, and again, for people, I'm assuming that watch this are familiar with the industry and know how taxing being on the road is, both physically and mentally. So, hopefully Master Tour does help that, just give a little more of assurance and help correct things that,
Yeah, I think
get in
just
front
to
of
kind
these
of
mistakes.
yeah, and just to recenter us, like obviously, you're like you're a good faith person and have extremely amazing intentions, and you grew this thing from the early 90s till 2020. Like there was an opportunity um to strap Master Tour onto something that could
Yeah.
even go very further. So I appreciate you kind of making sure that you say your piece as to why that would have been a high integrity move.
Yeah.
And people can kind of confuse that around like, if you sell, is it not a high integrity move? But you're a human, you're a human, and
Yeah.
like the intention here was to give uh, Master Tour a jetpack and to go
Yeah.
deeper and deeper into the future of making this industry better. But what
Right.
happened? Let's go. You and I were at Pulsar, February 2020. No one was talking about COVID. Yeah.
I know. I remember that there was one panel that someone came on. Because I remember everyone flying, especially a few people flying from Europe, and like, oh yeah, they're just kind of weird that they cancel all these flights from China. And everyone's like, and we in somewhat arrogantly believe that nothing can disrupt our business because, and I've been around in the business since 93 technically. And so it's been through, in my business has been through recessions. It's been through, just economic issues or, global challenges or, events that can affect businesses, and live music has always persevered through that. Like it's always maintained, even during the recession, people still went out to live events. I mean, that was one of those things that, even with their, limited income, they still needed that connection. They needed that kind of live experience and communal experience. So, I mean, I can't imagine if we didn't say it right before COVID, something as arrogant as nothing can stop our business now. You know, we were in the best state. We had the best group of employees. We had just hired 10 people.
So what
We
you're
had
saying
signed
is
terms.
you spited the universe and created
Yeah,
COVID
yeah,
by being
yeah.
arrogant,
It's
huh?
my fault. I did it. I mean, we were at that Polestar, and it was just we were just out to dinners, and we were like, this is, it was like
You're
it's
you're
so
at peak
amazing.
success heading into
Big
March of
success, yeah.
2020. Yeah.
Nothing can stop us. Nothing. I dare you. I dare you. Economy. Try. Throw your worst, and then obviously COVID, and obviously I don't want to. We don't want to talk about COVID and give it, any more time. But we out of everything
It sunk
in
the
the
deal,
business.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It sunk the deal. Of course. I mean, of course it did. And I know.
Yeah.
And I know issue. I mean, it was there was bigger things to address and be concerned about.
At some point, did you
No,
get a call from the decision maker on the other
oh yeah,
side? And he was
totally.
like,
No,
Paul,
I mean
what
there
was
was
that
a
combo like? Were you, I mean, you're such a good guy that I'm sure you knew it
and
was
this
coming, but
individual, it was great, and there was no beating around the bush, and it was just I knew because it was public what was going on with that company and the layoffs and everything. So and then we literally would read, in the trades in this company stating that they've suspended any non-essential acquisitions or investments immediately. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm super essential to the, they're not going to. So I just knew it. And the team was
well,
so great that they
yeah.
were very transparent, and they were just like, look, we still love it. And this went all the way to the top of the business there. We still love it. We still want it. But dude, look at it. And I'm like, I get it. Like, I'm not going
I
to.
gotta I got a
Yeah.
feeling the person who called is a mutual friend. We won't say who
Yeah.
it is, but is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we've talked about it. Yeah.
If someone's gonna let me down, I would want him to let me down. So shout out if
Yeah.
he's listening to this. Super good guy for sure.
Yeah. And it was the spirit of it. And again, I had no ill will. There was no like resentment because again, there was bigger things to, I was, unfortunately,
Well, so
in
how
a
did you
weird,
survive? So the end of the story, I think, is I want to come right back to where we are now. Is like this is another silver lining. You don't take the $20 million check from VC. You don't take this buyout. I mean, your growth has been amazing since COVID.
yeah,
After the shittiness. So like, okay, that's the end of the story. But here you are now.
yeah,
This acquisition falls through. Uh, I'm sure subscriptions were getting paused like crazy.
yeah.
How did you survive the pandemic? And like,
Well, it was,
let's
yeah,
just move past it as quickly as possible. But
no,
like,
done,
what was
totally.
your story in that phase though?
Like I mean, I've said this a bunch. Like we were really one of the lucky businesses in our industry during COVID because especially we just had we don't have infrastructure, we don't have staging, we don't have tour buses, we don't need fuel, we don't need material goods. It's just server space and programming. So unfortunately, we did have to lay off. I mean, it was kind of easy because we hired 10 people like the month or 3 months before. So, everyone was very understanding that we had to let people go. Fortunately, my key team, like the true, the people that had been with me at that point, 10, 12, 8 years, some of the key developers, they were like, no, we're going to stay, cut salaries into thirds or halves or, whatever it took. But we, in that surprise twist of government efficiency, we got PPP like within 3 months, which for 2 years just helped keep the lights on and the servers plugged in. And like I say, we were the lucky ones because we weren't a storefront. We weren't somebody that relied on having people in a venue. I mean, look how we know how hard venues got hit, especially on this. So we were lucky. We made it through only because of key employees that really sat through the storm with me, stayed on. And we didn't do anything because I knew if COVID didn't end, because if you remember, it was weird. The news was immediately like, well, as long as you don't go to live events, you're going to be safe from COVID. They were basically saying, don't do anything at a
Well,
concert.
I know.
You know?
And as soon as I heard social distancing, I was like,
Yeah.
they were fucked.
Oh, and like literally, it was on 60 Minutes. So like, they're like, as long as you don't go to restaurants or rock concerts, you're going to be fine. Like it was so directed right at us as a business.
It
Um,
really was.
and then you remember like during COVID, then all of the drive-in things and the streaming stuff like started to shift. We were approached by some pretty big companies to join in the streaming,
Mm.
the live event streaming revolution, the pay-per-view. And I had actually another chapter of a book I can't write is we did a streaming company, mid of the hemorrhaging of money and trying to create and salvage a business. We did venture into that for about a year into live event pay-per-view
I
streaming, thinking
avoided
that,
it. Yeah.
oh yeah,
I
yeah,
was just like, this is at best temporary.
yeah.
It's
No, but
not
this, no,
new. Yeah.
I did this in 2014
Oh,
or
okay,
six.
okay, okay. Got it.
Yeah.
So during COVID, you said no.
No, yeah, we tried this in 2014 and it was actually
Yeah.
before it was a thing. I mean, we didn't succeed in it, and we very quickly shifted back to the lane that we needed to be in, with some disastrous events that we didn't pull off live streaming. And again, for the managers that took that ride with us, I apologize again for those shows. But yeah, we stayed in our lane, and then because I knew if COVID, I didn't pivot. All we did was focus our energy on making Master Tour ready for live use again when COVID ends. I didn't want it to be, we weren't like, let's take advantage of this and make a totally new thing. And let's make, it shinier or make it different or add new buttons. I'm like, when COVID ends, people are going to come back to touring. There's going to be an explosive kind of resurgence back from the consumer side, and the tour operator side. And I was right, but I knew that our customers didn't want to come back to something brand new. Because there's so many other challenges that re-entering the industry after COVID, everyone was facing. I didn't want them to have to learn a whole new platform or see anything different. So we just kept Master Tour in a closet, made it faster, made it lighter, And so when COVID, I mean, almost to the date, 2 years later, is when our industry started popping
And
back.
how many engineers and employees do you have at entering COVID? And did you have to do layoffs
I think
or?
I was at like 14, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think we had, put offers for another five, maybe, with the
Mm.
pending acquisition and capital. I think we got down to six total,
Oh
during
wow.
COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just like, the live industry came explosively back. And again, we're
And
one of the
how many
lucky,
employees now?
we're going to be right at about, we're soon to be at about 30, 32
That's
all in.
amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Heading you're twice the, head count heading into the
yeah,
pandemic. So I mean,
yeah,
it's good to see the end of these stories. Good,
yeah,
getting down to
yeah.
six
No, it
employees.
is.
That's a
It's been
real
great.
situation.
And it's been wonderful. And now we're, in a self-sufficient,
It's about the same on my end too, now that I think about it, at least on the engineering
yeah.
team. Yeah.
No, we've got a mole in your company, and I copy everything you do as far as hiring.
Well, I was a little later to the game, so you had to,
Yeah.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
if anyone's following in anyone else's footsteps, it's maybe us, but
Well,
yeah.
don't look at my playbook from 2002 to about 2017. Terrible mistakes, horrible mistakes.
It's the
But
game. It's the
learning
game.
opportunity. There's no mistakes, just happy accidents, like
Yeah,
Bob Ross said.
100%. Yeah. Okay,
But yeah,
so all right, yeah, where we are
I,
in the story. Yeah, keep going.
now, I mean, now we're just current. We're up to date. We are here. Business is great. Master Tour has been growing.
And
We've been getting into like just weirder, not weirder, but just about 80% of our business is a classic, someone performing an instrument on a stage.
yeah.
The other 20% is theatrical touring, some sports, some political campaigning,
Mm,
burlesque tours. We have soccer teams. There's educational book tours. There's corporate product activation events that use it. Tons of vendors within the industry, that support the touring service, use it to manage kind of their teams while out on the road.
no,
Um,
now,
so
quick question,
that's just been
Paul. Just
organic.
to make sense of it, obviously I know you're back to growing and stuff. So if we smooth out whatever happens in November and you're just kind of a linear line from
Yeah.
2009 to 2020, did you just get right back on that curve eventually? Did the
Oh yeah.
curve
Yeah.
steepen or like?
Yeah, no, you can, I mean, I'll show it to you. Our growth, ever since we were accurately tracking this data from like 2010, 11, it did this up, a little dip in Q4, and then I'll go over here. Q4, 2018, 2019, 2020, all the way down to about 20%. God bless the people that
The
didn't.
20%. Oh my God.
I mean, God bless the people that didn't. I don't know why
Yeah.
they didn't suspend, but I mean, we weren't, and our monthly subscription fee is low relative per individual. So
It
there was a lot of
is.
big
Yeah.
companies that paid in a year in advance, but
But down to
between
20%. Yeah. And then,
yeah, but then right, and then it was almost March 15th, 2022. Remember, we had that little blip of hope before Omicron
yeah.
hit, and because Lollapalooza happened right like in between Corona and Omicron. And you remember Lollapalooza
Oh my God. Omicron. Yeah.
2021 or whatever happened, and everyone's like, "Yeah, everything's back." And then everything got shut down before. We always measure it from festivals because we were back in Lollapalooza right before Omicron. Omicron hit, and then they canceled Riot Fest, or like everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then back in March, that's when all the restrictions came up, and that's when we all got back out on the road, pretty aggressively.
And it just kind of, I mean, that's amazing for those that couldn't see it. It's like there was a bigger dip during COVID, but it just really kind of got back
Yeah,
onto that
yeah.
linear trajectory.
Oh,
That's
almost,
amazing,
and
Paul.
again,
Yeah.
same with the Q4 dip, and not as much anymore because I think more events. I mean, in the 2 years after COVID, I mean, you remember, like everyone was touring every day. I mean,
What's,
twice.
yeah.
They were touring, and even in the winter, people were touring because they were making up of all that lost time during COVID, which led to just so much, especially physical and mental exhaustion, for the touring industry. And a lot of the tours that were coming back were understaffed, so people are doubling up on their work. Tour managers are also selling merch. Production managers are also running front of house. It was for them especially just exhausting, and so we started to see and hear just this mental fatigue happening to a lot of our friends in the industry, and that I mean, that kind of it didn't change my direction, but that's when I was like, well, how can we help? How can we figure out a way to start making awareness of services, especially for event safety or mental health issues or physical health issues? I mean, we early 10, 12 years ago, we tried to introduce a telemedicine service into our into Master Tour, where for non-critical illnesses, you could have and this again was ahead of Zoom and ahead of real efficient video conferencing, but we wanted to be able to bring telemedicine consultations to people on the road. So we partnered with this company out of Dallas. It was just premature. We weren't mature enough to have a partnership like that. But the intent was still there. How do we help the crew? We have over 300,000, over 320,000 users now, and active. Most of them are active touring at some point in the year. So it's we're using the platform in our position to start being able to bring in, and again, we're going to not get into the management of mental health issues, but we're going to help facilitate the awareness of it. So one of our first things that we've done that I'm super proud of is partnering with Backline, and they're a mental health care company. We've done some wonderful things with them. We're super supportive. And now in our master tour app, there's a link and a button you can hit to just become aware that that's
podcast.
Oh, great. Yeah. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
She's amazing. And that's a little thing that is wonderful, because all we did is add a link. I mean, we're super supportive of them. But now, we have about 80,000 active monthly users that we're trying to just force that information in front of, because especially mental health, there's still a stigma when you tour. Even though most of the people we know would do anything for their crew, they would drop anything, but you can't sometimes drop a show. You can't cancel a show because, a technician has a bad day. And I think that stigma builds because you just know on a lot of tours, every position is so important that you can't bring that awareness to your management, saying, "Hey man, I'm just exhausted. We've done 8 shows straight. I can't handle this. I'm going to have a breakdown." It's a lot of crew, a lot of trained professionals don't address that. Backline is a wonderful way to address that, to support that. And what we can do, which is minimal, is just make that awareness, so that instead of going to your tour manager, and again, not that they're not supportive, but it's a very personal thing, the state of your mental health. So you can have a direct link to Backline, talk to someone that knows the position you're in on the road, the added stress, the conditions that you face that are not normal for a lot of people, and the sleep deprivation, being away from your family, and just the long hours. And so anyway, that we're super happy, and we're growing on that. We want to become, a platform that can just bring things like that, the awareness to the industry.
That's great. Yeah, it is really interesting. It's like you do have to have an awareness of like what it takes. This is one reason why I really like your product, Paul, is it does serve that kind of like foundation layer of the industry. And I'm sure there's folks outside of your ecosystem, but if you think like these concerts, having Taylor Swift on stage is like really amazing, but there's a unbelievable amount of crew and staff that makes it come to life, and the touring industry.
Hundreds, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hundreds of thousands if you think about like every security person, every kind of stagehand, every the sound, the crew,
the local vendors, the local everything.
Yeah, and there is like any sort of system, right? Like the people at the bottom of that pyramid, like it's it's hourly workers, and the pay is challenging, but the work is grueling. And that's one reason why I was really excited to have Hillary on. And I think that's an important part of what you're doing, is like, it's not like Master Tour is the end all be all, but it's something that helps and it makes it better, and including like, mental health services into your product. And like, that's amazing, man. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great, I want to, we are in a position now where we do have the trust and the respect of, the customer base. And so we're very diligently entering into some spaces that, we can't do incorrectly, and we can't just jump into things like mental health, without understanding that, and without understanding the value of a partner, like Backline. So it's great. And we do want to use our position to help that. We are launching later in the year a couple new things on the venue side, not to get into your space. It's very complimentary. This is a little heads up, everyone. We're gonna have a great integration at some point, we promise, between Matt and I on the systems.
Yeah.
And but the other thing I'm excited about is we're introducing a profile system, because like I said, we have 300,000 people, and one of the biggest challenges they have is finding work, finding resources, finding endorsements, finding references. So we're going to turn that switch on so that it can be a job board, it can be a reference engine. we kind of want to be like maybe like a triple A model, where we can provide big resources and discounts, or think of what AAA does. And if you're part of AAA, you can get certain memberships or upgrades. We're talking to some big airlines. We're talking to big hotels. We're talking to things that our service needs and uses, and how can we bring more value to them?
That's great.
Because we have a critical mass of people. We have 300,000 people. So hey Brant, like hey airline, what if we have
There's
300,000
300,000
people?
people in using your software.
Yeah, I mean about 80,000 monthly active.
Wow.
300,000 people have signed up and used the system at some point,
That's
since we
incredible.
started tracking. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so that's a good, powerful group of people. And we're starting with things like mental health. We're going to start things like bringing some type of scalable bulk savings or something to our crew. We have some great ideas and some great partnerships lining up for that. So that's really exciting. That again, we're kind of pushing this into a bigger thing, and hopefully helping the individuals, not just the tour managers, like get kind of resources and get knowledgeable about other things, including outside of health issues. I mean, I would love to, at some point, my big dream is to help provide healthcare to the industry, partner with a healthcare company, because bringing a group of 100,000 people that aren't properly insured to a healthcare company, like that can happen, and then that changes the dynamic of a lot of things. And that really is one of the big issues too on the road, is not being properly insured on health.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like
Hopefully
that'd be a good opportunity for you too. A good kind of like win-win model. Like I think that would be an exciting model for your business, but also, yeah, I think that's the thing about, I don't know, back to the conversations about people kind of having fearful of successfulness bad or whatever. Like I really love what we're doing at Prism, because I feel like, and I think you're the same way, like as Prism succeeds, like, yes, it's going to drive more money, it's going to make more money, but it like empowers us to put more and more into the product and more resources. So if you can provide healthcare, to this industry affordably, and it helps sustain your business also, and makes it,
right.
just, healthier and more resources to then continue
Right.
to give back. Like
No,
that's
and that's
exciting. I've never heard you
yeah,
talk about that. I like,
yeah,
I guess business owner to business owner, like I would really, that's seems like an obvious 80,000 people.
yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
that's a serious
obviously, the
business.
complexities of that, it just takes, like backline, it takes the right partnership. We're not going to be the providers of healthcare, obviously. Partnering with a company
Yeah,
that
of
understands,
course.
the unique challenges and
Not
the
reinvent that
dynamics and the
wheel.
movement. Yeah, no, I will not get into that wheel, but I will partner with someone that is interested, and if it fits. But there's so much we're going to learn about that, before dipping our toes in. But yeah, you're right. I mean, this also is a business, so we've had to raise prices. We've had to, strip things out of our software that just don't have a return, that don't, that might be nice for some people, but cost so much to maintain that we just can't afford it. So, and we've raised our prices, twice over the last 10
And
years,
by the
by
way, they're
10.
still extremely modest. Yeah. What did
Yeah,
you go
yeah,
from
I know.
$50 a user to 64 or something like that?
Yeah, 64.99, not
Yeah.
65. We would never charge $65, but 64.99.
Don't say, okay. Yeah. I was like, don't, you're on a podcast here. But
No, I'm saying
maybe
we'll never charge 65 even.
that's what I'm
We
saying.
might charge,
Yeah.
yeah, we might charge like 79.99. We had that, like when we were
Yeah.
restructuring our pricing. I'm like, really? Does the world still have that .99 kind of thing where it's that, and it's true, and I
Sure.
felt kind of like snake oil salesman in a way, like, oh no, it's not $65, it's 64.99. Like, come on. But to that point, doing that and raising prices for a business. And I hope, it's not our customer's job to understand the intricacies of running a business and how much time it takes to keep, software, I think, gets overlooked on the amount of people you need to run it, because again, we're not building gigantic stages. We're not moving 20 buses from city to city. Like there's
Right.
nothing materially to look except a software that fires up on your phone. So if people here, I've got 32 people maintaining that, and most of them, developers, which aren't cheap, and they're full time, and we don't
Well, especially
outsource.
if you want the product to work really well, and this is some of the things that I've like, kind of realized myself. It's like, hey, like if our prices are like, we want to hire good engineers, and
Yeah,
we believe the industry needs a good high quality product. So some of this is like education. It's like, hey, like we actually want the same thing here, and you don't want me to cheap out on these engineers, like quite the
No, right.
contrary. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're, yeah, because you sell a lot to companies in a way. You're selling to venues, and
Yep.
most of the time we sell to these individuals. A lot of times to management companies, a lot of times to vendors or bigger groups, but a lot of times it's the individual. And the $64 a month is not it's not cheap to a individual. That is running. That might or might not be getting. Most of the time now, I believe everyone is getting paid or reimbursed by the tour. For the expenses, whether it's one user or 20. But it's definitely a cost that we're conscious of when we've done our price increases. That overwhelmingly supportive, almost to a point like, oh, I should have put another $5 in there if everyone took this so easily. But it's definitely been when we do price raises. It's I'm always nervous. I'm always like, is this the point that we're just pricing out of the people that really take care of us and have really been supportive of us? But you're right. To as it scales in having tens of thousands of people on the system, or 65,000 people hitting the system every single day, for some intense data calls. That's
65K daily. That's
yeah,
serious usage. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So our costs, our Google Map costs, our Amazon server costs. I mean, they're
Hmm.
just astronomical. But we
Hmm.
can't strip out Google Maps because that's a huge
You can't strip
feature.
out AWS.
No, and they
The
but
average
but
user of a software doesn't realize that, like,
no, and yeah,
Amazon's getting paid.
our tour manager doesn't know that AWS just doubled their prices overnight,
No,
kind of without
and
telling
look,
us.
but Amazon is providing a cost that's, if we didn't
Right.
have that, it would cost us more, you
Without a
know?
doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I used to run master tour sync servers in my office. I had 8 or 9 Dell HP
Whoa.
desktops that if something stopped syncing, I'd be home. I'd have to drive to the office at like 3 in the morning to just re-plug in, recycle the computer and start
Yeah, it's
like the
like, let
30 band.
Amazon just deal with that. We'll pay
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
Amazon bill,
yeah, and the redundancy and the 99.99% uptime. Yeah, of course, it's worth it. But when they double their prices, or when we hit a certain
Yeah.
peak of usage and we get into the big company world, where it's tens of thousands of dollars,
Hmm.
and more of expenses just
Monthly.
on
Yeah.
hosting. Yeah, Google Maps, I recently just adjusted their pricing, so boom, overnight, just astronomically our costs went up on that. And there's only we can't just totally throw that back into the customers and
Right.
make them
Right.
suffer for it. But to your point, like, the better development we have, the better people that understand and can predict things like that, the better we can be adjusted and aware and ready for that. So it's
It
not a
is.
shock.
Yeah, and this is the advantage of having 80,000 people use a software, is you can democratize those costs over,
Yep.
all of your users. But when someone pays $64 a month for Master Tour or whatever, for like, their immediate thought is like, I get access to this interface. But
Yeah.
they actually we host it for them, right?
Right.
We pay all these other vendors, and
Right.
like it goes much deeper. So I'm even having a revelation as you're talking, in terms of like, just, I wish there was more awareness of like all that went into software, and having these
Right.
conversations publicly is,
Right.
definitely helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all, like, I mean, we understand, especially in software and SaaS models that we subscribe to. We understand. I mean, it's funny when I see a single product purpose app, something super simple, on your iPhone, a service. I mean, even if you look at it, even Instagram, or it's fairly simple on its offering. Now they've got all the algorithms and all that, and that I'm sure employs tens of thousands of people and for various reasons. But it seemingly is such a simple application that sometimes you wonder, what are these massive costs that go into operating that business? But we can understand that in a way, in a scaled, perception of it, of how difficult and how, things that can affect the business and the software can happen overnight.
Let me
If
oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Go
no, I
ahead.
mean, just it is. It's one of those concerns that we have, because all the different services that we use can affect the product overnight. Both on
Yeah.
costs and and operations. And there's been some scary moments, where something happens because of a plugin that's been outdated, that we didn't predict,
Yep.
collapses part of the service. And that's a very nerve-wracking, day and a half of no service potentially, and that's only
Yeah,
happened once or twice, but you can
yeah, you're
imagine.
doing an amazing job just kind of like humanizing what it takes to like keep Master Tour running. And
Yeah,
I think it's a beautiful time to kind of segue into like not an abrupt close, but just some of the
no,
thoughts that some of the things that I want to like talk about as we close. One of these I just had Mark from Monster on, and we had a pretty awesome conversation on AI.
yeah.
Do you think AI can help the industry? Are you using it to augment your engineering costs? Do you have any plans to bring AI into Master Tour?
Well, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, we're certainly using it in the development cycle of things now, and in programming, and just things that can replicate just simple tasks in development. We're learning as much as we can, and I mean, our industry is fairly archaic in a lot of things. I mean, the way that a lot of processes happen in industry, especially in some of the decision making or routing, I mean, are pretty still based on kind of the human element of understanding the way a band moves across the country, and the personalities involved. So definitely, I think there is in the future a point where, whether it's in Master Tour or Prism or something, that AI is helping just predictively route tours,
Mm,
predictively saving
mm,
costs by,
mm,
using data and even heat mapping transportation routes,
mm,
that like, especially in Europe, like, of course, AI can help trucks move across Europe and understand, checkpoints and border crossings and closures. So there's definitely things that, we don't know exactly how it's going to affect our industry or our, the Eventric business, but we are very actively, consciously starting to collect as much data as we can. And as we're moving into these different products and advancing, the way people enter information, we're looking at more, not entering, but absorbing information into Master Tour, having APIs with travel agencies and booking agencies, payroll companies, everybody that feeds the data into Master Tour. We want that to just be kind of a organic creation of information that you can approve and absorb, but not have to re-enter. Because even now, even on tours that are $100 million tours, they're re-entering all this information 5 or 6 times. So
mm.
I think AI can really help in the future of collectively putting all of that information, just cutting out so much of the redundancy in the data entry, and also pointing to past data that can be reused and understood better. And there's so many things in our industry that are still inefficient, even with our platforms, that can be improved upon. I mean, look at the way our systems should talk to each other, like that's, or at venue, or some of this information that, there's a lot of redundancies in the data that we collect. So
Yeah, the
necessary,
abilities. Yeah, exactly. The abilities to transfer data across systems to move faster as an
right,
engineering perspectives, like it has like CEOs like you and I just kind of seeing the future of like
right.
what we can accomplish. Because it's just a better world to create software now than in 1998 when you had to use,
Oh yeah,
like
FileMaker 7.
FileMaker. At the same time, like a lot of the capabilities of AI are speculative at this point. Like everyone
Right.
I talk to are like, oh yeah, like the implications for quality assurance and all this. And it's like, all right, well, what are you actually doing? And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
we're still looking. We're still looking. So
No,
it's like
and
it's not quite there yet. And I think AI, this is kind of a fun nerdy note. Like a lot of people don't realize like the dirty secret of AI is like the energy problem is not yet solved.
yeah,
Like
right.
you
A
like
lot of consumption.
yeah, right. Like people are like hoping for a breakthrough in like nuclear fusion, in order
Right.
nuclear fusion to make this work.
Right.
But one thing that I want to note too that I think is interesting is like it's a it's a brain it's new information that I'm like actively processing. I think you are as well. The whole world
Yeah.
is. But one thing that's becoming clear to me is there's this like bifurcation of like, will AI kind of help the infrastructure layer dramatically? Yes, I think so. This industry, I think, remains to be so resilient when it comes to
Yeah.
everything but a pandemic, but especially
Right.
technology
Right.
innovation. Like, oh, like might the industry go live stream? No, we want to go to
Right.
shows. We want to be in
Right.
person. Like the physical experience. Oh, what about throwing on the Oculus Rift? No, let's just build $3 billion on the Sphere.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that the
Yeah.
Sphere is like a live Oculus Rift.
Yeah.
And oh, guess what? You need stage hands still. I really think this is I'm going to make the prediction that this is an industry that's going to grow in value over time as more and more gets automated. You cannot
Yeah.
automate the live music experience and seeing
Oh,
humans express, and that's good
yes.
news for this industry.
Yes. Yeah. That's really good news. I mean, I created this business while still the majority of the revenue was being made through selling CDs. I mean, that, that was the
Yeah.
primary revenue stream for artists. Some, you tour to support the album cycle. Now you tour to support your life, and that's the main revenue. Now it's great that now, there are a lot other, whether the revenue is getting actually back to the artists and the content creators is questionable. But there's so many, there are more streams now being introduced to, the potential revenue generation for an artist. It's not just sell a ticket at a show. That's it. It's so many ways to do merchandise, so many ways to do streams, whether it's live or, through a Spotify service, all of the stuff that in video games and all of the stuff that you can start seeing, just sound drops hitting. And again, I'm glad I'm not inside that business, but the more money the artist makes, the more they can go on the road and tour. And that's the thing that supports, our two businesses. But yeah, I mean, one thing you said that's true. I mean, our industry is very skeptical on new technology. I mean, it was very skeptical on Master Tour. I'm sure, I mean, you guys were one of the first to market on building, venue, contract offer management things, scheduling like that. And you experienced the same thing. Like even recently, maybe this week, someone say, no, I just use Excel still, and I mean, Excel has always been around, but
You bet this week.
yeah,
Lots of
but
wins but still stubbornness,
it's old school, and there's, I mean, I always get
Part of it is
amazed, and
making
I
Prism
toured.
better and better so that it's just more and more
Yeah,
obvious that like,
yeah,
like we have to play our role too to
right,
kind of say, hey, like the purpose-built solution really is better than just kind of hacking away at a spreadsheet.
yeah.
But yeah, there's
But we
change resistance,
yeah, I mean, my first version of Master Tour was before Google Drive. It was before, Google Sheets, Google Docs. It was before Dropbox. It was before Box.com. It was before, a lot of these services that I was fearful that could replicate a big portion of what Master Tour does, just synchronized scheduling. I mean, we were doing synchronized scheduling before, there was Google calendars and kind of right, like maybe when iCal started doing the shared calendar stuff. So, there's been a lot of that technology that arguably, is good as a certain element of Master Tour, but Master Tour has everything together. You're not doing your document management in Google Drive and your calendaring in iCal and, your comms in Slack or, your spreadsheets in Excel. So that's been the value of sticking everything together. But on AI, I think you and I are on the same page. We have to be very careful of introduction to something that just doesn't make sense and something that is not needed until it's proven out. And I think AI is going to be, there's big excitement now. I mean, I just used it to write a TaskRabbit review, for a contractor that came out and fixed my electrical in the conference room. And it was just like, write a nice review. And it was a brilliant review that I posted. So that's my use of AI right now.
It's pretty funny. It's like the Sam Altman, like one of the founders of ChatGPT, just left, and on Twitter it was so funny. They're all like, a bunch of people like reverse engineered his tweet, kind of saying goodbye to the
Oh yeah.
founder, and got
Yeah. Yeah.
OpenAI. Like you totally just prompted OpenAI to like right.
Yeah. And that's it.
Well,
Like I've gotten a couple emails from people
it's like you
that
just typed this into ChatGPT and you didn't even look
you
at
did.
it.
Yeah. There's no soul, man. I could tell. There's this one person that was thanking me for a dinner or something, and it was like 2 paragraphs of the most eloquently, of words that I know the dude. He doesn't speak like
Like in
that.
Shakespeare, it's like, dude,
Yeah, he's
this
like,
is not
he's using
you.
words like furthermore and henceforth, and I'm just like, dude, come on, like put some soul into that, But I'm this, I've used it for certain things, but not
Let
for personal, and I think that's the point of the industry that, I think that's going to be a slow introduction. And when we do introduce stuff, with AI, that's blatant AI into Master Tour, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be tested, and we're just going to make sure that it's ready, and that's what our customer wants, and it works for the customer. It just doesn't add more work.
Let me ask you this, and let's end on this. A big kind of big question for the future. What do you, outside of us both agreeing that the live music industry beats AI in the end, what's your hopes for the music industry for the future? What's your big vision? Yeah. Next 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my
Your
big
company
vision is,
included in that. Yeah.
yeah, for a company, for me personally to feel like I've succeeded, and I don't know if we can do this or not, but providing some type of healthcare service to the live event industry, to the touring professionals, that would be a dream. that would be, and again, we haven't partnered with anyone. This is not a big, announcement that we're doing it. It's just something that I think is so needed. And then I think, especially if we can keep growing and doubling and tripling in size and user base, that, we will have the most significant amount of users collectively, that we can approach somebody on that. So I'm really excited of that. And if it's not that, it's going to be a lot of things like Backline and, other services, whether it's just, hey, where's a great place to get a pizza on a day off in Omaha, or I'm having a mental breakdown, I need to call someone. And if I tell my tour manager, he's going to fire me. So I get to see that, Backline is available. Those things are exciting. I mean, other things for the business, we're really excited to move in to these new products. And there's some really exciting stuff coming out in Master Tour that I think will make a big effect on the industry. That'll be very well absorbed, and it just will help, again, to the overall efficiencies of running this business and saving money and doing things more efficiently on the road, giving people some time back so that they can take care of themselves, and enjoy being what they do. Everyone, anyone can get out of this business, and people tried during COVID. I know a lot of people that went to a trade, became an electrician or a plumber or a carpenter, and it's just in their blood. That's like people in our industry, you can't leave it. And even though there's some miserable experiences, especially on the road, I mean, of the exhaustion, both physical and mental, it's in the blood of people out there. And it's wonderful that's, you can't leave it. You can't get it out of your soul.
But then just making it more sustainable and healthy,
That's right. Exactly. And I think we can do that.
Here's a probing question. 10 years from the future, is the live music industry still growing into new heights? Is this industry going to be bigger than ever 10 years from now?
I mean, it's hard to imagine how it could be bigger on a, per person seeing a live event capacity. Cause I mean, you're going to have the outliers that go to 200 shows a year because they can't help themselves. At the end of the day, how many shows can be out there versus the population that, the addressable population that will spend money? I think a big challenge, which there was some interesting news this morning, about ticketing and, the ticket prices where, I mean, isn't it amazing now where you just don't see a ticket under $100, unless you're going to a club, or a theater show, or you're going to a band that just absolutely refuses to raise their prices. And again, people take that potentially the wrong way on these astronomical prices. And there are cases where it's just complete absurdity on the level and the pricing of a ticket. But there's what the ticketing world has figured out and what the artists figured out is there's a market for that. And hopefully we've gotten away, at least if people are willing to spend that in these, four figure, is that $1,000? Yeah, $1,000 plus per ticket prices on events. Hopefully now the majority of that is getting back to the artist, and not the secondary market. But I think that's going to be a thing that needs to be addressed or corrected because, people can't, there's only so much money. And if ticket prices
maybe it's just
raising,
more content. Maybe more content does it. Like there's so many clubs in Austin that don't have shows all the time. And, I am a believer in the music industry. I guess what I meant to say is the one perspective is like, does the revenue of the industry grow? But I think what my hope is that just more and more people get funneled into the live music experience. And there's more and more ticket buyers out there and like, clubs, there's
and I think
better artists that can pull people. And I think the creator tools that are out there, the economy shifting, like these are all really positive signs for the industry. And it does have to figure out this economic, the economics of like the $800, further, or Dead & Co tickets, like, yeah.
No, I mean, there was a, we are a little bit in the ticketing business, but there was a ticket that I was getting for a family member. And the tour was like, yeah, you can buy them. I'm like, oh, phew, great. I'm willing to pay. I just wanted a good ticket, for my family. It was $600. I'm like, I'm not buying $600, for my daughter. Like, she needed 4 tickets. I'm like, just $2,400. That's a $3,000 night between transportation, food, bev, ticketing, Uber, what the rickshaws, like, it's just absurd. But people are paying that. So I think that, if
that's got to figure itself out for sure. It has
because
to be figured out.
Right. Because there are going to be people that like, I have $600 this quarter to spend on concert tickets. So, I can either go to 10, 20 shows, hopefully that are under $50.
That's why I'm rooting for the clubs. This is the clubs. Yeah. Like, come on. Yeah.
And I do think that, I mean, there's so much good music out there, and there's so
There
much better
is
awareness to see it. I mean, I love the
Spotify,
fact that
yeah.
you can hear some crazy shit on Spotify, and then right next to it says, "Hey, they're gonna be in your town in 2 weeks." Like, we didn't have that. I
Yeah.
mean, there was far less live events activity in the 90s, 2000s. And you really had to fight to find out who was in town and what you liked, and go to record stores or CD shops and flip through things. So much music discovery. I mean, I've discovered the best music in my life just on that. And then because of the integrations, being able to see when they're playing in a show locally, and most of the time it's at that small, shop, like, yeah, like something, like Empty Bottle in Chicago.
Yep.
It's so
Yep. Shout out
those are
Prism.
still the best. Those are,
Like, yeah,
yeah,
one of our favorite Prism customers for sure.
yeah, yeah. I,
Well,
I mean, I played so much in Austin back in the day, but there's some great. I mean, Austin and Chicago are in the top 5 music towns in the country
oh
as far as
yeah,
venues. Yeah, without
the
doubt.
best,
I'd
the
say
best.
Chicago's got a one notch over Austin, but I'll still put Austin in the top 5.
Ooh, shots fired. Dang. Dang.
It's on.
Wow.
It's on.
I won't I won't even address that one.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have the data to
They're
back that up.
both great live music scenes, okay?
We'll agree to disagree.
Only
How about
one is
that?
the live music capital of the world, though.
True.
Self-proclaimed.
So right.
No,
Is it still the weird self-proclaimed capital of the world or not?
I don't know. I
You're
mean, I
doing your
love
best.
Austin
You're doing your best
deeply.
to keep it weird. I appreciate that.
We're doing our best to keep it weird. I'm doing my best to keep it weird. The city and just the people moving here, I don't know if they are, but anyway.
I
Hey,
hadn't been to Austin in like
these are
4
big
years, and I went
combos.
back. It is. It's like anything. You guys aren't unique. I mean, growth is growth. Leave
Any
it.
shout outs before we close out? And like, who are the other tech people kind of making this industry? Like, I think
Well, I mean,
Derek over at
Our buddy
yeah,
Derek at that venue. Come on, he's
yeah.
leading the revolution
I think
there. He's one
Febreze
of the
with
good
like
ones.
bands in town for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we over the years we've done we developed some integration with them back 10, 15 years, 12 years ago,
Yeah,
into their thing. And there's a universe that you and I know think about, where there's about 5 or 6 tech companies that aren't competing with each other.
yeah,
I'm not going to use the word synergistic because I hate that word, but
yeah.
they're complementary. And that's a wonderful idea where the 6 of us get together, and again, not in a competitive landscape, but save our users and save our resources by integrating just basic core features, and just
100%.
giving our teams the availability to do other things and grow in ways that we can utilize each other's services without complementary, without competing. So
Just
that's
working
fun. That's
together.
fun that
Yeah,
there's
working
really
together to
only
make this
one.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's 4 or 5 companies that there's only one of really in the industry, and you and I are part of that. So and I'm very conscious of that.
And
We're
I'm
very.
thankful that you would, I feel honored that you would include me and Prism in that. I really do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who else? Come on, who else?
Well, I want to wrap in just saying like,
Great.
it was revealed to me in this convo. I mean, I already know you, but like you deeply care about this industry. Like I asked you about the future of the industry and you immediately went to like, we got to make sure this is still affordable for people. I love that. You also wanted to, you're thinking about healthcare when your big vision is making sure your users have healthcare. Man,
Yeah,
I want to really emphasize that not everyone thinks that way, and I learned that about you today, and I
awesome.
appreciate it deeply. I really
Yeah,
do, and I think the more like I'm glad to see you succeeding, and also having those deep desires and cares, and having ran this thing for 25 years or whatever that you
right.
have now. Like you clearly have the right intentions for the industry. So all the
Yeah,
success to you, my friend.
right back at you, brother.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. I'm glad our relationship has grown exponentially over the last few months, and I think the partnership will grow even further.
Yes.
You need to get to Chicago. I still understand you're not going to join me at Bonnaroo,
I
for our
know.
Bonnaroo week.
I'll
There's a
be
lot
at
of
Dead and Co.
disappointed people. There's
With
a
a-
lot of disappointed people that you're not going to be there, but we'll do a live stream for you from the activities, and we'll certainly meet up at some. We got to pick a festival or two to meet up at, and then just
Yeah.
run around.
100%. Let's do it. All right. Well,
Good.
I'm going to close at the pod and let's hang on for a second talk. But
All
thank you,
right.
Paul.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Matt.
yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
Wasting hours, flowers.